Obviously it is up to them. And if they're happy to do it, that's great. And we've had an example where they've already done that on one in Yelton. Yeah.
Can you not do it subject to yourself and the legal package to sort of condition?
Yeah, we can. But what I'm saying is that sometimes the committee is quite clear. I mean, the Dev 32 is a condition. I don't think that is. We won't argue about that. They've got to provide so that. But as far as the primary residency is concerned, they volunteered it, which is great. And I would draw my remarks saying they had to, because obviously they don't, because it's 5 or more. But if they choose something not to, then there's nothing that we can do. I mean,
but isn't there a point subject to, approval subject to agreements with Section 106? I've seen this done.
We do subject to, and a Section 106 agreement can be voluntary in that somebody can offer up something in order to make development more got to be necessary, relevant, and that means that there has to be a planning policy to back it up. So whilst they might give us, say, a unilateral undertaking that they would comply with the principle, that should not be lifted. And so, whilst if there's then a change in ownership, or indeed they change their mind because they find that they do want to move or sell, right, and that's restriction, then we don't have the policy backing, so we can argue that it's necessary and relevant. It would meet those tests. That's different.
Right. Well, there we have it, members. But they are. I think one has to put park that slightly, although they have generously offered to do that. So, yeah. But as I said, if it changes ownership and it's appealed, they could put a variation for that.
So isn't that how we ended up with so many second owners in the first place? Because the legal restriction isn't why it doesn't hold up.
Well, no, there is no.
I'm slightly confused.
No, the primary residency is there are parishes that have any new dwelling has to be primary residence, any single new dwelling, and as such, Salcomb's a good example. Thurleston, for some reason, South Milton has chosen to say you've got to have the threshold of 5 before you do it. Obviously, this is below that. So, although they could voluntarily put that condition on, what Ms. Foles is saying is that if at a stage
could we not apply Dev 8, meeting local housing need? Simply because it would address the housing imbalance. It is providing a 3-bedroom, which is recognised as undersupplied, and it's ensuring that the Section 106 agreement ensures that it will never become a second home and therefore lost to the housing.
Well, I think what Ms. Foles is saying is that we can't, because there is no policy that supports that. But if they're look, members, all that we can do is that we can say that they would sign a 106 with the primary residency and leave it at that. But what I'm saying is you must be aware that at some stage in the future, somebody can come along and change that.
Yeah.
And until we have a policy that supports that, and maybe the neighbourhood plan would change in the next few years, which means that then we could hang on that. I don't know, would that be in retrospect, or does that count?
Well, once the building is up, we couldn't require it.
No, but just say they volunteer to do residency. Yes. That if at that stage South Milton has changed its neighbourhood plan, saying it's actually just single dwellings qualified.
Yeah, because you determine it on the plan at the time.
At the time. Okay. So there is hope. Councillor Ken.
That's probably back to the question that I've got, which may or may not be, I don't know, but you're saying about a need, a local need for that property. So what's wrong with that they're living at the moment, and what will happen to that? Does that have a local restriction on it?
We're straying outside of the planning,
Right, okay.
the planning issues here. Okay, right, members, got a recommendation for approval, which has been seconded. That's against the offer recommendation. The main reason is that you feel that this is an infill site. I don't know if Ms. Houselander or Ms. Bouvier wants to come up with a sort of rough idea of conditions. It would be subject to conditions, delegate the conditions to myself as chair, probably yourself, Ms. Houselander, and the local ward members. So that's Councillor Pearce and Councillor Long. Yeah, just a rough idea of what the conditions might be, in case somebody wants to add an extra one that you think they. Sorry? Well, the reasons are is that we feel that this is an infill site, as you know, and therefore supported by the neighbourhood plan. Sure, okay.
Standard biodiversity.
Landscape plan that they provided, delivery of biodiversity measures, delivery of DEV 32, and that details what they'll provide to be agreed between parties on. And then we've got section 106 for primary residency, and we've also got the delivery of the parking spaces on site, and materials conditions for the stone detailing to be agreed.
External lighting?
And then external lighting.
Okay, right. Okay, so that's a rough idea of the conditions as they are. In which case, everyone seems to be okay with that. We'll go to the vote. So those in favour of approval, which is against offer the recommendation, please show. And those against approval? Any abstentions?
No, I'm sorry, I meant to, against refusal. That was good, that just now.
Against approval. So you're
No, in favour of approval.
Can we take it again?
No. Oh, sorry, I just got completely.
okay, so those in favour of approval? Those who are against approval?
3.
And any abstentions?
1.
I'm missing somebody.
You're missing someone. Clearly, the original 8, I think, are the same.
Okay.
So those all voted in favour of it. So it's 8-3-1. Okay, that application is approved. Yeah, 2 minute come for break. But I do remind members that we've got a lot on the agenda. You're going to be starting eating
We haven't quite like seriously, like, I don't really like being there. I was thinking about that.
Members, I wasn't do a sound check, we're just going to have to do it. What we are doing, just to tell you, is that that door by Karen, the door's going to be left open, Karen.
Yeah.
So members of the public can listen in on what's being said because they're having really difficulties coming through the mic.
Yeah.
It's now being moved. That's Kate.
No sides, Ken. You swear it will be a break.
So are you all right there, Karen? All right, that's okay.
Will they hear even that? You just blam on it.
Yeah, she's all right. She's all right. All right. Okay, right. Let's move on. Let's move swiftly on. Item agenda 6C. It's Ms. Arnold. Welcome. Over to you. What I'm going to say with this is this: the reason why this has come to committee is because it is a relation of a member of staff. You will note that there are, unless a amount of date, there are no, as representations, there are no responses received, and the parish council is making no objections. So we can, well, what I'd like to do, because it's a member of staff and we're being recorded, I'd like Ms. Arnold to make a few comments, but then it may well be that members feel that we don't need to go into a massive debate. Ms. Arnold, over to you.
This is an application for planning consent for a new dwelling following a planning approval for an in principle of the dwelling, which was approved at appeal in 2020. There is a slight amendment to the approved scheme in that there is a slight increase in the red outline to accommodate drainage, which is why there was an addendum sent round. But there is no in principle difference between the report that was issued and what we're considering right now. Essentially, the shaded area there on the slide shows the area that was approved in principle. That's the site in the middle of the screen there. There is a small gateway access through the hedge there, and there's a field access there. This is the site, it's just normal field, there's a gap. There's the neighbouring property. Very quickly skimming through, so if I'm going to explain, don't say something, let me know. The red outline here was, as approved in principle, the hatched area is the drainage, otherwise it's exactly the same. So the principle of the dwelling has already been established. So all we're considering really are the design, impact on the neighbour, whether it provides adequate living accommodation and parking and the drainage as well. It's quite a modest dwelling that they're proposing. I've described it as two-storey, but the main accommodation is within the roof slope, so you could view it possibly as a 1.5 storey. Very simple layout, adequate parking provided. The room sizes and the overall area all comply with national space standards. Not considered to have any particular impact on the neighbouring property. And there's plenty of space to provide adequate drainage. So the application is basically recommended for approval with delegation to the head of planning and the chair, as it is currently out to reconsultation, simply because we changed the description from technical details to planning. And as a statutory requirement, because there was a change to the description, we've had to reconsult.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Chairman, as has been mentioned, this application before, because the applicant is an employee of the council, having read through the reports and heard the presentation, and that there's no objection to this, and background to supporting, I'd like to move approval in my council recommendation.
Second that. We have a site visit on this one. Sorry? We did have a site visit on this one.
We did, we reduced it, but it was overturned at appeal, so we've gone ahead. Okay, right, so in which case now there's no one else wishes to speak. We all okay with that? I've got a proposal for approval which has been seconded. All those in favour, please go. Thank you very much. Right, thank you for that, members. Move on to application 6D, 15 Church Way. Is that Miss Head doing that? Okay. Just on this one, members, we did go on a site visit, and rather than everyone traipse through the garden, I think 3 of us went through. Councillor Brown, Councillor Long went through just to see the aspect from the rear garden. So just be interested in what they've got to say about that when we sort of make our deliberations. Thank you, so.
Did he go all the way from Western Supermarket to that, did he?
What?
Did he go all the way from Western Supermarket just to that?
Yeah.
Good gracious.
What?
This is all the Western Supermarket.
Well, I'm not going to say anything.
Got caught up in a really bad accident.
Oh,
Oh, this is a small person.
For at least half an hour.
It's important that our officers not appear virtually.
yeah.
Seems crazy.
Well, I think on that occasion, because it was no objections, and it was only reason being brought to committee because of it was a staff member control, then I do, I can do it's happened. But in retrospect, I mean, I've got issues with people like doing it remotely. I do think that we want to have them, talk them face to face. On an uncontroversial one like that, that could have been, but I think on that occasion we might want to. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So we've got, so 15 Church Way, just I mean, obviously we saw that. I hope members found the site visit useful. I think they're just getting there.
So they're by the speed of the previous one.
Yeah, I think she's up in the office, so she probably wasn't expecting.
You didn't realise that we could move that.
Slide it down the back.
That's not surprising, is it?
And lunch is what's it?
Having the next one.
I was heard.
Hi, sorry.
Welcome, that's all right, don't worry. Just take a few minutes sort of getting all your bits together. So you've got Churchway and then Stark House again. Come on, that's not the new one. I did not. No. No, absolutely not. No, you're allowed to. You can obviously be interested in what members you've got there. You've got to start.
Get my third jab.
Lucky you.
Just 3 weeks ago. Didn't catch anything in Italy, so. Doing PCR tests.
Where it isn't.
No, here we got back. We had antigen test on Saturday before we did the PCR test. A whole lot for the two of us, 340 pounds. Plus the bond going out. Three tests and all, 340 quid.
Thank you very much.
You read it, then. Right, okay, over to you.
So this is a householder planning application for property in Youngton. It's out of Bull Street. The site location how it shows it's within the residential area of Youngton. And it's a 2-story dwelling which sits in the middle of a terrace property within the A and B. The application is for the conversion of roof space, including a flat roof dormer extension with existing elevations and a proposed elevation. It includes a flat roof dormer extension to the rear. The application pre-submission of an identical application earlier in the year, which due to officer administration error was not correctly issued. So this application is a resubmission of an identical submission. During the life of the original application, officers discussed with the applicant agent to see if they were able to reduce the dormer due to kind of allowing sufficient headroom within the gable end of where the staircase is. They weren't able to do that. Just got some photographs which show the view towards the rear of the property and number 16, which is the single-story dwelling to the east, and then views looking east to the west, which show there's no other similar extensions such as this within the street scene. And then that, not expecting to read it, but just to show you that the SPD outlines that dormers should relate well to the existing property. They shouldn't dominate the building and shouldn't appear squashed towards the edge of the windows, and that large ill-proportioned box-type roof extensions will be resisted. Ultimately, officers believe it's contrary to this guidance and has the potential to have an overbearing impact on the neighbouring property, and therefore, due to its poor design, by reason of its scale and massing, it's considered harmful to the existing property, not considered subservient, and is not considered to preserve or enhance the A and B
and for those reasons it's recommended for refusal.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? No, in which case we will move to the speakers, and the first speaker I have is Ms. Batson. Thank you, Councillor.
And
I'm asking.
hiya.
Well, yeah, you've got 3 minutes,
Yeah.
and then when you finish, members of the committee may want to ask you questions about clarification, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Over to you.
Thank you. The scale in comparison to the existing roof is unavoidable if the conversion is to be useful and functional. Any reduction in height or width would deem the space inadequate. In particular, it would not leave enough room for the required height above the stairs for access. The same problem would occur if a pitched roof was used. The footprint of the house is relatively small, only 30 metres squared. So although the dormer does dominate the roof at the rear of the property, it is still only adding an additional usable floor space of 14 metres squared. This means our current overall floor space of approximately 60 metres squared would only increase to 74 metres squared, still leaving it significantly short of the UK average for a 3-bedroom house. It is also worth noting that our development size is significantly less than that allowed under the permitted development allowance for a loft conversion. We're proposing adding approximately 30 cubic metres, and the permitted development rules allow up to 40 cubic metres. A local example of the exact same design with the same massing and scale can be seen at 107 Young Park, where the planning application was approved in August 2016. This again shows that it is a standard design that has been used in many other loft conversions and was considered to be good enough design for the South House District Council Planning Office to allow the development within the AONB. Flat roof dormers are the most common type of loft conversion, being a standard recognised design. The design meets all requirements for permitted development if it were not in the AONB. So we therefore feel the design is reasonable and not extreme or out of the ordinary. For that reason, cannot be considered for design. We feel that the dormer does not have detrimental impact on the existing property, given that the property is of a very plain standard construction and does not offer anything attractive architecturally. The addition of the dormer would therefore not drastically change the architectural appeal of the property. To be blunt, it is a standard plain house now, and it would be the same after the addition of the dormer. Our development would neither add or detract from the beauty of the area. The development can only be seen in a very limited capacity from public areas. It would be finished using materials which match all current materials on the property to ensure that it blends in as much as possible, so it wouldn't impact the AONB. The neighbours who would be able to see the dormer from their property, which we have spoken to, support the plan. This is true for both of our immediate neighbours who have written letters of support. The owner of number 16 contacted the officer directly and has written us an email to confirm this. We've received no further objections from any local residents. Overall, we feel this development would be completely insignificant in Yelton and the wider AONB, and the vast majority of people would never know that it had happened. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions, members? No? Thank you very much, Ms. Aston.
Thank you.
We now have the other council here, so local ward member Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. Members, you might be interested to know that the reason there's no representative from the parish council is that when the first application was put in, the parish council offered no objection. There was an administrative error, which Ms. Henderson referred to. It was the identical application was resubmitted. The planning committee of the parish council then decided that they would follow the planning advice and replicate the planning advice that they'd been given by the profession. Need to call in on the first submission. It's fair to assume that the parish council no objection that was on the first. Why they're not here today? because of the administrative error. Really, I don't have a huge amount to add to what Ms. Askin has said, except to say that you can see that the wording on why I called it in. Basically, I believe it to be a matter of judgment. I do not dispute DED1, the potential, the fact that DED1 says that the proposal does have potential to have an overbearing impact. But I would argue that number 16, the single story dwelling, is already overlooked. It's overlooked by the first floor windows in numbers 15 and 17, and adding an extra story will not increase the chance of property being overlooked any more than it is already overlooked. In terms of Dev 23 and Dev 25 around the idea that Dev 25, the scale, mass and design will be a dominant feature and couldn't be seen to conserve or enhance. Well, I would argue that actually the houses in Churchway do not conserve, nor do they enhance the AONB in their existing form in the slightest. They were built in 1976. They look like they were houses they built in 1976. I'm not convinced we would necessarily build a housing estate like that in the AONB today, but they exist.
Yes, yeah.
And they are there. I would argue, as Ms. Haskell has argued, that the addition of an extension of the door extension in the manner proposed will not enhance, but it will not detract either. It will simply add to the property. It will be viewed from rear gardens of 3 or 4 properties. None of them are objected. It will be seen minimally. I mean, I entirely accept this development slide that was put up, but the reality is you will not be able to see that. Members who stood up on that rather rickety set of stairs to the side of the row will note that even from that, it was very difficult to see the rear properties. It is simply out of the way. And then we have Dev 20 having a proper regard to style, local distinctiveness, vision, impact. Well, the local distinctiveness, those of you that came on site visit saw, I would argue that there is not an awful lot of distinctiveness about it. And so, I guess what I'm saying, members, is this is only the second time I brought an application to committee. I support Ms. Kent today in the factual statements that she's given in terms of policies, but I think when taking them into the contextualisation of Churchway in the answer, I would argue that this extension would actually give enormous benefit to a local family and actually would not cause significant harm to the AONB. And on those grounds, I'd very much like to ask that you consider approving it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions, members? In which case, we'll move to the debate. Who would like to go first? Councillor Rowe.
Yes, Chair. Could you hear from the members who voted side the property to hear it from the commercial?
That's Brown, Long, and
from one of them, so that we will.
Yes. Councillor Brown.
Yes, certainly.
No, if you missed that and anything, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, well, this is back of the garden, having overlooked it, had a chance to see sight of BMC, the rear of the other neighbouring properties, which will be affected by this. I have to say, I couldn't see a great deal wrong with it. Yes, there would be a degree of overlook created by it, but as Councillor Thomas says, nothing that isn't already created by the existing houses. So I don't think much else to add, to be honest. You won't go through looking back at that.
Thank you. Councillor Long, Councillor Kent, do you want to add anything to that? Or I cover it all?
I think it has covered it. I think from the sort of, I don't think there'll be any loss of immunity. I generally don't like ugly boxes and, tend to agree, but there are circumstances depending on the type of housing and its position, context and setting. I think in that context and that setting, although it goes against the SPD, I don't actually think that it will present that much of a problem to local residents or to the style of design of that property, of those properties in that area.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Rowe, does that help?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Would anyone
I would say therefore I would move forward.
move approval? Councillor Rowe, and that's been seconded by Councillor Reid. Does anyone want to have anything else to say before we go to the vote? Well, I'd like you to, obviously, it's against officer recommendation, so I'd like to hear some of your reasons as to why you feel that. I mean, again, a lot of these are subjective, so, and in your mind, you feel this is difficult or whatever.
I feel that in my mind, it's not detrimental to the AONB, but part of the AONB, but when the rules, regulations, whatever the AOMB don't say that we can't have development or we can't have improvement in certain places, it's not in a prominent position, and I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, I think that's not in a prominent position is important. In the context of this particular development, you feel that the detrimental effect on the Airbnb is negligible. The overlooking, you feel is already overlooked.
There's already overlooking there. It's not a sort of grandeur estate, is it? It's just basically.
Councillor Hodgson?
I think there's a climate emergency argument in favour of this, and like Councillor Long, I wouldn't, it's not my particular design, but I can see the rationale of the applicant that set out on that. But in terms of actually making best use of buildings, we've got the embodied energy of a house there that is possibly not very large, and to make it more better value for the occupant, to actually put an extension like that is you know, climate emergency terms, actually a good investment or, you know.
Right. Officers, are you happy with the reasons that if members go against your recommendation, that you feel that they've covered the points that you have said? Okay, in which case it's proposed for approval, which has been seconded against officer recommendation. Can I show of hands for all those in favour of approval?
9.
And those against approval? And any abstention? Thank you, members. That application is approved. Thank you, Ms. Edison. Is that?
No, it's not.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you.
Just, Ms. Hedge, before we go, I mean, sorry, it's my fault, we didn't really say about conditions.
It would just be the time, according to plan, that there are severe apologies.
Okay, well, can we just say subject to conditions, and we'll agree that with myself, yourself, and Councillor Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Harroway. Just, take this off, sort of that. Yeah, don't panic. You are on my account.
Oh, don't encourage me, please.
Well, I can't do that, I'm sorry. Someone's going to bring you.
She might have to rent it. She was her friend. She went, you wait,
Jack, I just want to go give him a quick shout.
I couldn't hear the presentation in the next room because the sound's so bad.
Sorry.
She was.
No, that's
And this is the objection.
He's taking his presentation.
That's the next one.
I mean,
This next one. She put it when she.
It's not.
She said she wants to next.
Yeah, you should realise that delaying numbers not. That's not true.
But you should be.
Yeah, stop it, Richard.
Yeah, no, that's true. Excuse me, sorry, Kate.
Okay, she's going to be sending me one for that one to the house.
Is Jack going back?
Yeah, she's coming.
With the lady?
Yeah, the lady. But she got her arm by the back. If you could sit on the chairs next to her, so that'd be great, and then we'll call you when you're ready. You'll be able to go from there.
Right, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Yeah, outside the room, I think.
Yeah, if you could sit in the chairs that are just outside there.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Right, we'll crack on. So item agenda 6E, Ms. Harrahane, over to you.
Thank you. So this application is the rear of High Street in Scotland. It is the area of the banner. It's for alterations and extension to the existing dwelling, along with the creation of a roof terrace.
I'm so sorry to pause you there. We're going to repeat request that the sound is terrible. So can I ask you to speak as loudly as possible, please?
Or while you're making a presentation, you can do the speaker right over.
Microphone, you mean?
Thank you.
Right now. Okay, so the application is for an extension to the existing roof and the creation of a roof terrace on the existing flat roof extension. Officers have no issue with the extension itself. The only issue and the reason that it is recommended for refusal is the impact of the proposed roof terrace on the adjacent property, which you can see in the, oh, you can't see my cursor, sorry, which you can see in the background on the north elevation. So when members visited the site on Monday, you'll be aware there were plant pots and things like that on the flat roof, but I would just like to reiterate that in planning terms, it is a flat roof. There is no planning permission for a terrace. There's no lawful use of it as an amenity space, so we are just considering it as a flat roof at the moment, with a proposal to use it as a terrace. So the adjacent building, which members visited on Monday, has 2 extant planning permissions to be converted to residential. This is a material planning consideration, and so we need to consider the impact of the terrace on the amenity of the building that you visited on Monday. So just to remind members, or for those who weren't there, this is the view from the window, which would be a habitable room in the conversion that's been approved. You can see the flat roof and you can see the proximity of the proposed terrace to the habitable space of this building. Given the expanse of the flat roof and just how close it is, officers consider that this would be an uncomfortable relationship and would be harmful to the amenity of this building that the photo was taken from. So just another photo looking out there. I mean, members may remember when we had two groups stood between, one in the building, one on the terrace, just how close you could see each other. We were waving at each other. So it is very close. The proposed plan, I've just added the distances there from the neighbouring building to the proposed roof garden. The proposed plans do show planting, which has been described as screening. The plan, so it's 1.6 metres high, as you can see, although this is just indicative. It does show that planting really isn't a great means of screening. It's not high enough, it's not very solid, and you need to be very sure that the plants you plant are going to thrive and be dense enough and be there all year round to the extent that they're going to provide screening between the two. I did consider whether screening could resolve the issue, but given the proximity of just how close the two sort of sites are, I concluded that anything that was high enough and solid enough to provide meaningful screening was actually going to raise new amenity issues in terms of you know, being within sort of 4 or 5 metres of that window, which then has its own issues in terms of outlook and being overbearing. So as stated in the report, there are no issues with the extension, but just to sum up, we have to consider the application in its entirety, which does include the terrace. Officers consider that the proximity of the terrace with the windows of the adjacent building is just too close and would be harmful to the amenity of this building, and the recommendation is therefore refusal. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions? Councillor Hodgson, I'll go to you first.
Thank you. Yeah, the height, what's the relative height between the height of the terrace and the height of the room where the windows that you're concerned about overlook?
So if I go back to, so you can see the proposed north elevation in the bottom corner there. I don't know the exact height off my head. You can see that window is higher than the terrace would be, and that the current proposed screening would be.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, probably a technical one for you, Chairman. Can we not actually look at these in separate one plan application, or I mean, because obviously the extension is fine, but we've got issues with the terracing, yeah?
Yeah, we can partially support an application, consider it as a whole, yeah.
And to be fair, the extension is to provide, where we climb through that tiny window, the extension is to provide a walkway out onto that flat roof.
But there's no problem with walking out the flat roof. It's just the planting on the flat roof that's a problem.
It's the use of it as a terrace, doesn't it?
I'd say it's the other way around actually. So if plants on it, it's fine. Walking around on it, if it's not, you shouldn't. I mean, obviously on occasion, you have to.
When we get.
Right.
Yeah,
Councillor, do you want to ask something else?
yeah, I did have another question, sorry, Chairman. Yeah, I understand there's a question about a certificate of lawfulness. Has that actually been lodged and applied for?
As far as I know, it's been submitted, but it's not yet been registered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right. Councillor Bond.
Just a question. I recall when being both at the sort of applicant site and the neighbours, that there was a roof terrace just sort of opposite the application, which has the same impact.
Yeah, there are other roof terraces sort of within the vicinity, but if you look at the building line, if you're looking towards the high street, if you look at the building line, the separation distance between terraces and other buildings is a bit greater. I think, although it is kind of as you say, sort of, there are some about, I just think it expands a bit right in front of this window. That's the issue. If there was a bit more separation, then it might be a bit of a, it might be.
Thank you. Right, in which, any more questions? No, we'll move on to the speakers. So, Mr. Swallow. Please. Hello, sir. Hello. Nice to see you. You've got 3 minutes, and after those 3 minutes, members may want to ask some questions for clarification, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine.
Right, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think I'd like to start with trying to explain our concern over this application. It's for the change of use of a flat roof onto a roof garden and relates to the whole of that roof garden, the whole of that flat roof, which extends up to 4 to 6 feet in front of our property. So in other words, the whole of that flat roof is included within the application site, within the red land. If the application is approved, our neighbour could use all of the roof and could have a barbecue with friends next to our property, only 4 to 6 feet away, with the result of noise, smell, overlooking, and loss of privacy as a result. The nub of our objection is that the very limited gap between the proposed roof garden and our property is so small that the significant adverse impacts on the residential property cannot be mitigated. In other words, 4 to 6 feet, you can't mitigate the impacts. If I put this to you, if members think about their own homes, which are spread across the district, I'm sure that if adjoining owners and neighbours were allowed to extend their gardens in front of your own property to an extent where the garden extension is within 4 to 6 feet of your property and fronts onto your living room and bedroom windows, I'm sure members would be extremely concerned. You have to appreciate that the situation at Beatty's Passage is exactly the same. Our objection is that the adverse impact on our residential property and living conditions is a material planning consideration, and this proposal is therefore contrary to policy. We would therefore ask you and your members to support the officer's recommendation.
Members, any questions? Yeah, Councillor Powell.
This is not straight application, but you indicated that if the use of the route was further away, you would not object. Does that mean that there could be a scheme which would satisfy you?
We're trying to be reasonable. Unfortunately, our neighbours never approached us in the whole time which she's trying to secure a planning permission for the roof garden. She's never approached us, and that unfortunately has meant that she submitted a planning application 12 months ago for an identical use of the flat roof, which did not receive officer support. Incidentally, I will pick up on the point that when she submitted photographs of the flat roof 12 months ago, as part of that application, the flat roof was completely clear. So in terms of her pursuing a certificate of lawful development, it doesn't meet time scales, so it will fail.
And the answer to the question was?
And the answer to the question was that there could possibly be a sensible solution. What you have to remember is when members visited the site, they were all at the far end of the terrace. What I'm saying is this, if planning permission is granted for this roof, then it includes the whole of the terrace, right up to within 4 feet of our property. Answer to your question, sir, is that there could be a possible solution that would be acceptable to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think that's very helpful. Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, my question was actually about how long she's actually been using it, but you already semi-answered that.
Can I just say, yes, the certificate of lawfulness and all that is nothing to do with this particular planning application. So that may be, that may come at a later date, but not for us now.
Okay. Well, the answer to the question is that our neighbour has been using the flat roof on a gradual basis only over the last 11 months.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Any more questions, members? No. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I would now like to.
Chairman, can I just ask a slight question here? This gentleman sitting, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but every time anybody's coming in, they're breathing all over you. There is COVID around you, and you are being exposed within a metre I just wonder if that's really appropriate, whether some, you should be slightly moved or something, or they.
No,
they should have.
It's too late now, isn't it? So, too late. It's too late. Thank you, councillors. You've raised the point, needs to bear a bit, and I think.
No, you can't say.
No, I think they should be asked to stand performance bars.
Yeah, that's
Okay. All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. You don't have to do that. Members, please. Ms. Jensen as a supporter of the application.
Could you just stand a little bit further that way so that we can all see you?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Ms. Jensen. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
So you're going to have 3 minutes.
Yes.
And then members of the committee may want to ask a few questions for clarification, if that's all right.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so over to you.
Okay. The application, which was for alteration and extension to provide improved access to the roof terrace, had support from 2 close neighbours and from the town council. The council's heritage specialist also supports the application and has already given listed building approval. I've lived at Star House for 22 years and have used the roof terrace as an amenity space for a total of 17. A lot of that time, yes, it was a bare roof, but we did all sorts of things there, and I have 6 declarations that will state that belong to the certificate of lawfulness of people. The planting started during COVID when I felt I wanted to green the area, and it's also been quite a therapy for me. But during the whole of the 17 years that I used it, and my friends came, and there were various activities. My family used to love spending time there. Nobody from the objectors has ever complained about its use, either in writing or verbally. I understand the primary reason given for recommending planning refusal is the proximity of the Style House roof terrace to the first floor windows of the objective building. As members who visited the site saw on Monday, it is simply not possible to overlook the objective's first floor windows because they are at a height, the sills are at a height of 2 meters from the level of the roof terrace. In fact, it's the roof terrace which overlooks, which is being overlooked. Neighbouring Butterwalk House roof terrace is a similar distance from the objective's first floor windows. It additionally overlooks habitable rooms on the ground floor of the objective's west elevation, which my terrace does not. The occupants of Butterwalk House have used perennial shrubs as a means of successfully screening and maintaining privacy. I have similar shrubs placed at the same distance to demonstrate that the same level of privacy is achievable. Please note the shrubs are approximately 4 meters from the objective's building.
30 seconds.
The objective's windows are on the left. Oh, this was my picture. It's the wrong one for a minute, but I can just show you. Sorry. That is the distance. My roof terrace is to the left, and the Butterwalk House one is to the right. There's about 1.5 meters between them. So the we could go to the other one, and I'll just show you quickly. I've set my planting back in line with the Butterwalk House ones. So on the left, you have to imagine is the north elevation of the objectives building. And on the right is the other end of the roof terrace. There is a seating area there which can't actually be seen.
I'm going to have to stop you now because your 3 minutes is up, I'm afraid.
Okay.
So thank you very much, because we've given you extra time there. It may be that.
Sorry, the pictures held me up because.
Yeah, okay, no,
Could
sure.
I just say one more sentence?
One more sentence.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand why an application for a similar amenity might be refused, because the Butterwalk House terrace has.
Thank you. Right. Members, any questions? Councillor Rowe.
Yes, thank you. The pots, is that actually on the roof terrace there, the pots on picture, is that actually on the terrace?
Yes, thank you.
Any more? Councillor Hodgson.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, how often do you use that terrace before going out and using the open space?
Probably several times a day. Now the plant said before was more intermittent, but we don't use it.
Can I ask a second question? The little ladder that we all use, those for site visits, I just wonder how safe that would be considered. I mean, if there was an incident on that, would that be kind of quite a serious incident? I mean, I'm thinking in terms of insurance, if you had a friend that tripped on that.
Yes, it probably would. I have myself fallen off. But fortunately, it's an injury myself.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions, members? I've got a question, if I may, Ms. Jensen. We heard from the objector that there may be a compromise solution in respect of, and when we were up on the roof, I think we saw it, that next door there's a sort of balustrade, and on the other side of the balustrade is the perennial plants. And that did seem to offer quite a considerable amount of screening, albeit you could see through them, but you know, it broke it up. I was wondering, would you be prepared, so with a new extension coming out, if you think just right where the left hand, as you look onto the roof, so yeah, there we are. I mean, actually you've done it on there as those drawings provide. So that's a balustrade going to the left, and then perennial plants planted there to. And what are the distances there? I can't see it, but the glasses on.
So the longest distance from the window, they're not balustrades, they're just planters. So there's nothing, they're balustrading.
Yeah.
The longest distance to the longest area is 4 meters. The middle one is 2.66, and then the gap of the little passageway that you go through is 1.2.
1.2, but the passageway wouldn't be.
No, that wouldn't be part of the.
That would be so we would as you come out of the door onto the roof, you'd be 2.66 meters, which is what, about 8 foot, 9 foot, and then when you're
6.
What?
About 9'6".
No, 2.6. Sorry.
Oh, it's about 8 meters. Yeah.
About 8 foot. Okay, and then the 3.99 meters. That's quite a lot. So that's 12 plus more 13.
13.
Yeah. Okay. Now, maybe you're also planning officer. So that's the drawings. And we accept that those are planters.
Yeah.
If members might feel that there is a compromise to be had here, but it would mean that basically the bits to the left of that would not be part of the roof garden or the roof terrace, that they were not allowed, people would not allow to. Could we condition this application, or would it need to be a new application? Let's say.
I think it would be difficult to enforce as a starter, but I'd probably refer to Cheryl.
Yeah.
So not quite understand what you mean, a condition to prevent.
Well, because what I'm saying is we spoke to the objector, and what he's really upset about is that if people come out and they're standing right there, they're literally 1.2 metre away, 4 foot away from his window, and although, you know, it's pretty close. And he said there may be a compromise if it was moved, because as he said, when we were all on there, we were all down that far end, and that wasn't so bad. So what I'm saying is there a compromise that we could condition to make sure that everything to the left of that doorway is out of bounds and the right is okay as the roof garden?
As Charlotte said, that would be quite difficult to enforce, but I don't think that would address the concerns.
No, I accept that, you're saying that, but I mean, what I'm saying is that if, you know, members may feel that actually the relationship's okay, but if we can make it better, that would be a lot better.
I think that would need to be in your application.
A balustrade, and then it actually defines the line. And the other thing, if I
Well, that's what I'm saying, is can we do that, or does that need to be in your application?
It would need to be in your application.
Okay.
What you wanted to condition would probably can condition in its own right.
Can I just ask, or just point out, I think the 3.99 metre line is the longest line. I think that's where the window is, because I don't think the window doesn't come all the way down to the corner of the staff house building. I think that there is another view that shows that it's not like, yeah, so it's, no, it's not that one. It was, I think it's one of the drawings, the elevations actually that show it.
Oh, that's making me go.
Sorry. That's it. Yeah, so that's it. So the bottom right, you can see where the line comes out, Chairman, where the line comes out. The entrance comes right out. So it's right across actually. Actually, you can tell
Yes,
it's
the
bedding.
The window is almost completely in line with that roof, yeah, so it's looking out.
But that window also looks over the neighbouring as well, doesn't it?
But then that
It's an angle. It's an angle. We saw that in the site visit. You know, you look straight down. There's the roof terrace or flat roof as is at the moment. To the left is the roof terrace. I mean, you know, there's a relationship, no doubt about it, but it's not.
Chairman, can we be clear then? Are we able to?
No, well, I just want to hear from Ms. Bowles as well. You want to say
I'm
something?
not sure that, thank you, I'm not sure it's for the members to try and find a solution. I think the objector has objected, I'll determine it as is.
Sure, okay. Well, as is that the whole space would become a roof terrace, so that would not stop anyone sitting 4 feet away from that window. But I mean, it's a shame that there hasn't been a discussion between the objector and the applicant that actually come up with a compromise that means that actually the roof terrace would only be acceptable on the far end, well, not the far end.
But Chairman, can I just say, this is the applicant's papers, isn't it? Well, the terrace design that we've seen, or the roof garden, whatever you like to call it, the planters are shown not being, and that's what we saw on the day, they're not shown as being right at the end, they're actually shown as being set in.
Yeah. What I'm saying is
so surely
is that just illustrative, or is that saying that that's the whole point?
That's what we saw.
I think the issue is that they're just planters, so essentially they can be moved around, and this is where the enforceability comes in. Because you know, if it was a balustrade, you know, which I'm not also saying is not necessarily acceptable for various reasons, but if it was a balustrade and it was fixed around the edge of the thing, that's one thing. But saying that your only means of being acceptable is a big plant pot which could be moved, I think it's there.
Yeah,
to be frank.
that's a fair point. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, just I mean, Ms. Jensen, while you're there, you've got that design up there. Now it may be that members feel that the whole of the roof terrace is unacceptable, but for the end that you've drawn it there would be acceptable. But from what we're hearing from planning officers, that would have to be a separate application in the sense that you would have to put in, you're going to put a balustrade along and, you know, a fixed thing, and that would, is that something, I mean, you've drawn it like that, I mean, presumably you're very happy, would you be very happy with that? Or?
That was part of the application that was drawn, and at that time, the planning officer said that that was not acceptable to have it set back like that and have a balustrade. So this, it's unfortunate, I don't do the drawings because I can't do that, and the person who did the drawings inadvertently left the flat roof on, whereas it should have said roof garden or roof terrace on both. The point being that I would have liked to do that. Why would I want to sit so close anyway to another building? I just don't see the.
Thank you. thank you, yeah.
It works both ways.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Right, members, any other questions? No? Thank you very much, Ms Jensen. And I will now move on to the board members' council purchase here. Something from Councillor Sweet to read out.
Oh, can I listen?
Yeah, you can. If you just wait outside the door of you, if that's okay, please.
I'm very happy to support the application for access to the rooftop. This is a very good use of space in a tense town centre location. Greening up with a flat roof serves a mini carbon sink in an urban area, and it's an example of how small spaces can be used in the environment. Any overlooking issues can be overcome by a railing or balustrade or additional planting. This will also serve as a pleasant outlook from any surrounding properties. Anybody on the roof would have to literally peer down to view through any nearby neighbour windows, and the obvious outlook point from the roof is down into the open space rather than directly at the nearby buildings. As I understand, the rooftop has been accessed for use for more than 10 years without any complaints at all. Family and friends are going to verify this. Nearby property whose owners have objected has not been inhabited residentially. I recommend this application is approved.
Right, so that's one of the local members. Over to you, members.
Surely a solution can be found without her having to reapply.
Doesn't sound like it.
No, it would be a completely different application.
Right, so just to, even if she had one of those, you know, like a sled shape, I've seen them used in a situation like this, where they come up a bit taller, but they're curved over, so that actually, that applicant from there.
No, that's right, yeah, let's not do that, but I mean, what we've, you know, I mean, I think there is a solution to be found here.
I think it's just as detrimental to her not to be able to use that roof as it is to him to have to look at it.
Well, absolutely, I totally agree, but some people, you know. Yeah. Councillor Wilson.
Well, I've obviously had quite an interesting think about this. I've just put a point forward that I think, I mean, I support what Councillor Sweet has said, and I think she makes some really good points. I mean, in terms of these roof gardens, we went, and it's good to go to the site visit, it was really informative, I thought, and when we look down, you can see the little extra bit that's lower that belongs to Mrs. Jensen. But the roof terrace is actually the main place that anybody can sit out and enjoy a bit of sunshine for an hour. And for me, when I didn't know about anybody else, and I came up behind you guys, when we were actually accessing it, I thought, goodness, I would not like this to be something that somebody had to do. You know, or I just feel it's something that needs to be improved, and I think I really welcome the fact that they're putting in practical access there. In terms of having pots on the roof, I doubt very much, I don't know, but I doubt very much Mrs. Jensen's parties up there. I would have thought most people wouldn't have a barbecue on a tarmac flat roof building, because the chances are you could do quite a lot of damage from the heat. So I think but I think instead of that, we've seen, you know, in this last 18 months, we've seen a huge rising need and people finding ways to meet their own well-being needs. And it strikes me that that's a really classic, as has been pointed out. You know, this is about people's well-being and being able to have access. To say that that's not possible, I think that would be churlish of us to not find a way to actually support somebody at the time, just to regularise something they do for years and just making it a bit safer. That's really what we're looking at. And I think the fact that the listed buildings have no problem with it, that's all gone through. The roofscapes that you look across the back of the top nets, you know, you can't actually see them from an intimate level, this is the high street or whatever. But they are really intimate, and the fact that the listed buildings accepted that slightly new materials is acceptable and it's all to scale. I just thought, to be frank, anything look over a green space rather than looking over a black space, an empty black, and yet another black tarmac roof, as opposed to a kind of something with green that you can't really see through, and it's very low. So you're looking out, you're not going, well, what's going on down there? I mean, they're the ones being overlooked. So I think it would.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Harrahane, would you like to say something?
Make a couple of points from what Councillor Hodgson said. So with regard to the listed buildings that haven't been approved, that is correct. But neighbour amenity is not something that can be considered as part of listed buildings consent. So
as I've said, in planning terms, I have no problem with the extension, and Richard has no problem with the building consent because he does not have to consider neighbour amenity, and that's the only issue.
It's all about neighbour amenity.
The other thing I would just mention is about the use of it as a green space. Refusing this does not stop planting and things like that. Or that's not development. So that being able to sort of make it green, make it more eco-friendly is not predetermined by whether this is approved or not. That could happen anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I just think to add that actually we've declared biodiversity emergency. These little roof gardens are actually brilliant analysis for wildlife.
I think what Ms. Harahan's saying is that those are not mutually exclusive. You can have a roof garden without it being a roof terrace. Although,
you can plant and
although,
sort of do
I mean, you might.
On mine.
Right, okay, thank you. Any other, you recommended you proposed approval, which is against officer recommendation. Any other members wish to say anything? That's right.
Thank you. In keeping with the nature of the town in which this application is being made, and I think the distance will not be 4 foot. It's not relevant. It's 3.99 metres if any of those. Right. So that and therefore I second.
Second approval, okay. Just be fine. I mean, could one of the conditions be a landscaping condition? Which means that there would be those, as you see on that picture, that those would be conditioned as part of a landscaping condition. Do you think that might be?
We could ask. Yeah, I mean, we could ask for details of the plants and things like that. If you wanted to.
If it's mine, if it wanted to approve it, I'm just saying.
No, what I was going to say is if the reason for it is to get the landscape enhancement, if it's to provide screening, then I think we're back to the same issue of it movable and not impossible.
Okay.
So it depends why you want the condition.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. That's a lot.
Just a question. We're obviously looking at the planning applications. We will be approving the plans as we reviewed them. That's one of the plans that I'm viewing with that screening, whatever, in position. Surely that's then important because it's a breach of.
It's not as per plan.
It's not as per plan.
I mean,
rather than go through again, I think officers are nervous about that because they feel that it wouldn't be enforceable. So, you know, and ideally we wanted the belt and braces approach, it would be a new application with a balustrade and thing, and then definitely. As it stands, they're not that, you know, they're nervous about saying that's it, because what we are proving is that the whole roof can be is a roof terrace, so they could be right up to the window. I mean, people may, you may take it more pragmatically and think, well, there's no way they do that. In fact, they do it exactly as that one, because indeed, they're more overlooked than overlooking the flat. But that's a judgment you have to take. I've got a recommendation, proposal for approval, which has been seconded. That's against officer recommendation. I think we're all agreed it's about neighbour amenity. Could I have some reasons as to why you disagree with the officer's take on the neighbour amenity?
It isn't actually overlooking, it's underlooking.
Yeah. I think it's actually a well-being matter, a safety and well-being matter for the owner.
Okay, so you think that the well-being and safety of the owner over sort of in the planning balance, that's higher than the detrimental effect we have on the neighbouring amenity. And you're saying that neighbouring amenity, the effect on it is acceptable in the sense that you're only looking up rather than. Okay. Are you all right with that, officers? I mean, that's what the proposer and secretary said. So, yeah. Right, members, so it's proposal for approval, which is proposed and seconded, so we'll go to vote. Those all in favour, sorry?
Voice and conditions.
Yes. Well, I think, we've discussed it a lot. I think members.
No barbecue.
No barbecues.
What about the lighting?
Lighting. I think lighting's a big one. Yeah.
No, outside lighting.
No external lighting without permission.
Yeah.
Without permission.
Not even fairy lights.
Would there be? Could we have a landscaping condition?
Yeah, is that for landscape enhancement or for screening?
Well, I know you said you can't do it for screening because you can move it around, but I think it's both really.
So details to be submitted.
Yes, yeah.
Can we can't condition that those pots, whatever, are in that position? Can we not condition that?
I think sort of the nerves about it.
Yeah, I know.
Council panel, and look, I think you have to take a pragmatic view. Do you think that Miss Jensen would want to move them right up to the window and sit there, or do you think, for your own privacy on that roof, would you want to leave them where they are and things like that? I think that's the best that we can do with that, because I think officers are nervous about guaranteeing that those could be there. You've got to take a bit of judgment call on that, members.
I would say throughout lighting, I think that's actually unreasonable within a town, isn't it? I think maybe it'd be low level.
Any outside lighting would be subject to permission. They have to come to the council. Details.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Any more on that? No, we will go to the vote. So can I have Stanley, you're right, and Ms. Harrahane, all right on that. So those in favour of approval, which is against offer for recommendation, please show. And those against approval? And those abstaining?
That's me.
Now,
I didn't go.
So 5-all, 2 abstentions. I will make a decision and I'm going to go for approval. Just like that. So that application is approved.
Good.
Lunch, members, thanks very much. So, yeah, you've got over half an hour. It's 2:05 now. So we want to crack on. We've still got a lot of applications to get through. Some of them major. So I will just ask for, we'll go back to item 4, declarations of interest for any of these afternoon applications, members. AOME.
Yes, Chairman, I just feel that he's mentioning that I have actually gone to the various reasons.
Yeah. I think a lot of us will now. Yeah, I think a lot of us will. Yeah, they've got a dual policy. Yeah. Yeah, are we streaming again? We are. Excellent, good news. Right, so declarations of interest, and we will move on to Ms. Stansbury, Cottage Hotel.
Thank you, Chair. So most members who on the site visit this one on Monday. I've got quite a few photos in the presentation. I've put the update on the slide, mostly to remind myself to update you, and a few things come in very last minute. So Councillor Hodgson asked on the site visit about solar panels on the approved scheme. I do have some approved elevations on here. There are no solar panels from what I can see already renewable energy on the approved scheme. One of the objectors, who is the gentleman who owns the property to the side, I saw this property on the site visit, he has noted his objection. He's now, his concern was with overlooking from windows and balcony. That's now been addressed. That 4 late objections have come in from 2 different people. I've just summarised the points there. Some of them didn't raise any new concerns. If I've been notified, there's an intention to refer the application to the Secretary of State to be called in if members were likely to approve. If I just leave you a couple of minutes to just read what's on the screen while we read it all out, it's easier. Can't read it, okay. So comments concerning about the breaches that have taken place as what was taken to the council a couple of years ago. 4 extra rooms that have been provided underneath do not justify the breaches, the increase in height, concern of the use of the orange hand tile, the extra height in the building, the impact that's had on the property behind. What's been built now is very different to what was shown in the previous applications. There's no economic evidence ever provided to justify what was approved. Particularly that the hotel is stated to be a major employer, but again, that's not been quantified. It lists policies and planning guidance that the proposal was contrary to, so the design, appearance, layout, scale, density, materials, detrimental impact on the A and B heritage coast, elimination of panoramic views, which will be legislation says they should be protected from the A and B, the impact of lighting and amenity, loss of dark skies, over dominance of the building, and it ignores the approved landscaping in the original proposal. Some of the objectives did include photos, which I've put on the next slide, because they haven't been able to be put on the website in time for members or anybody else to have the opportunity to see them. So obviously that was the building under construction. There's another view from a different angle. This is a view from the hotel at night, and that's the view hotel. That's a view from one of the nearby properties. And the final objection slide is a photo montage showing the entire building. So it's obviously in 4 phases. So that's as was approved. So moving on to the presentation. So that shows the placement of the site. So it is in the area of the heritage coast, outside of the undeveloped coast. Again, that shows the extent of the actual application that we're considering today. It's just the area in red, which is facing property. And that shows the green is the extent of the changes in that. Now, I'm not on the distances for that elevation of the building to rescue rear. So to the right hand side of the red line is phase 1, so that is what is before members today. To the left of that is phase 2, which is not part of this application. Right, just for comparison, that is the approved one. You can see the roof is different. The railings on the top, and we now have the extra 4 rooms per floor as well as gaming baskets. So that's the whole of the approved scheme, so that's all of the phases at the top. And I thought it was useful to put this cross section in, and the next slide as well follows on from that. There was mentioned at the site visit that the owners of Westview, when they bought it, were fully aware of what was proposed. I think you only have to look at that cross section to see what has been built is very different than what was presented in that application. The bridge of that hotel has been over the terrace of Westview. As members would have seen, that's not what we're looking at today. And again, these are 2 images from the landscape and visual impact assessment on the approved scheme. So the top one shows the before, the bottom one shows after, it shows a much smaller building, lower ground, quite muted, slate grey roof tiles. Put this one in, the project has not come out very clear, but you can make out the pink outlines, that's the areas that are different in comparison to the approved scheme, although that doesn't include the railings in the roof or the gable baskets. I asked the applicant to submit this drawing partway through consideration of the application when it became clear that the height was different, just to try and clarify what the height was. There've been so many different drawings, errors in the approved drawings, it wasn't exactly clear. So it managed to make out the pink writing on there. So we've got 82 centimetres difference to the top of that gable. The lower bit is 58 centimetres difference, but that does exclude the railings and the lighter roof lights that they come on top. And this drawing doesn't show the additional floor, lower ground floor level, or the gazing. So moving on to the landscaping scheme, again, this was mentioned on the site visit, that was comprehensive landscaping scheme agreed. For members who don't know, Amanda to my left, Amanda's our landscape officer. So it's Amanda's comments you can see in my report. So on the left, comprehensive landscaping scheme. On the right is what's been submitted with its application. So there's various details shown. The only detail we have, and apologies members can't read that, it just lists some planting species, and as I put on the slide there, it just says the planting will screen upwardly or will trail down over the gradient. So moving on to the photos. So this is a long distance view of the Baldwin down. But you can see almost in the centre, quite clearly is the orange roof. This is a photo I took from the pier down on the beach. That's a close-up of the gaming baskets, and I mentioned on the site visit about the concern about the way that the stone has been packed in them. It's very loose. That's not how you would normally expect to see gaming baskets packed out. You notice that some of these photos have got scaffolding. It's from my site visit earlier in the year, so there's photos from different times of the year. So this is again that was on the same day. Not quite finished. Now the balcony screen has gone in. Another photo taken from the footpath, which again was earlier in the year. So moving around up to the top, you can see you think back to the image I showed earlier of the grey hotel roof, it's very different to this. I want to show the impact on the property. Members didn't go into Westview on Monday, but I have been in there previously. The next few photos from that property. So that stood on the left-hand side of the terrace area, moving around. And obviously, if the scheme is built out, the roof will continue along to make the roof of the existing hotel there. So a lot of that sea view will be obscured by the hotel roof. This is from inside the property, so that's taken from the porch area, moving into the living dining room, the view from the bedroom, and this is from the other side, so you can see the relationship of Westview on the left-hand side of the photo there. Property. This is taken from the hotel car park. This is another view. Another shot moving. I mentioned the objective, who withdrawing his objection. To the left of the hotel there, you can make it. That wasn't clear on there, sorry. That's the objective who's no longer objecting. So to summarise the key issues, obviously members are aware that the officer recommendation is for refusal. 2 reasons. The first one is the impact on the A1B and Heritage Code. Second is the impact on Westview. Just want to remind members of the 2 or 3 key paragraphs at the end of the paragraph 176, 177. Great weight should be given to conserving and enhancing the landscapes in the hidden areas of and beauty. Goes on to say major development in these areas, and we would class, given the scale and impact that this proposal has, we would class this as major development in the A and B. Only be approved in exceptional circumstances, and then it lists the considerations that the application could include, including the need for development, national considerations, the impact on permitting for fueling the local economy, cost and scope for developing outside the designated area. Obviously that couldn't happen, but it does say need for it in some other way, and the impact on the environment and landscape, and it's shown that could be moderated. Nothing has been provided with this application in terms of those considerations. So that's all I'm going to do for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ansbury. Any questions? Councillor Abbott.
Could you go back to the slide with the grey roofs again? It was from the yes. That one. No, that's not there yet. That one.
Yeah.
Right. Just wanted a moment more to consider that. Actually, on the roof tiles, when we were on the beach the other day, there was that discussion about orange and the red and so on. And those are grey. And this is not this is from the pack we received on Monday, part 2B, which I presume that's supposed to be a roof tile, but it's, I guess it's.
I haven't seen the pack, and I can't, my eyesight's not that good to see what that is.
No. God, it's hard to crossbones.
Yeah, Maria Turner, that's a roof tile.
It just, I mean, it doesn't show very much, that picture, actually, does it?
Certainly not the colour.
No. A plain flat tile, and we were talking on the beach about it appeared to be sculpted, although at the back they don't seem to be sculpted, they just seem to be up and down.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I don't know where to take that conversation. It just seems to be a whole host of variety there. Is that actually the proposal in the bottom one?
That was the images from the approved application.
The approved application had grey tiles.
Grey tiles were shown on the images. I believe the drawings refer to grey tiles or smooth red tiles. I pointed out when we were stood on the beach, that property right on the beach, that had a smooth sort of different variations of red.
Yes, variegated red. Yes.
So there was this other condition which approved Marley smooth red tile,
right,
which I believe they might not be the exact same as what was on that house, but they're very similar.
Yeah. I question about Gabions. Actually, Gabions to me I'm sorry, are not obtrusive. To me, they're an interesting feature of building, and there was some comment passed down on the beach about having a view of the way Gabions appeared in it. Perhaps from you, Councillor Brazil, actually, and I thought that's a very subjective view. I think Gabions. You just said that the packing is different to what you would expect. Don't know what you mean by that. Gabions are supposed to be full.
They are supposed to be full, and the purpose of them is usually as they use here structural mechanism. But there are ways of packing them so that you can have a smooth face at the front,
yes,
with more random stones behind that. So it presents more like a dressed stone wall,
yes,
although enclosed within a basket and loose made.
Yes.
So, and the impression that there's actually an example, if you go out the south west coast, like out to Philston, they do maybe baskets on the end there, and are very well planned. And the impression does look like
so you make this looks more like rubble.
And I mean, it is natural stone, but it's not the same as the facing stone that's being used for the building. It's
no
rare material, so it's
but then if it's to be planted up, it'll be sprayed with soil and seed.
Not necessarily. We haven't got any landscape details that explain how they intend to do that. There's some soil at the base. There is only hard landscaping on the details shown above that, so there's nothing to actually establish into in terms of the suggestion of the trailing plants coming down it. So we really need to see a lot more detail in the landscaping proposals to understand what their intentions are in that respect.
Okay, thank you. And my third one, please, to stand through. The pictures that you have from inside the house have the difficulty for me that they're effective commentary on the view, and yet I'm only new. But it seems to me one of the first things I was told is there is no right to a view. You had some other phrase, and we were given a planning guide with lots of definitions in it recently. And I wonder if you could go back to that phrase.
It's the loss of the outlet, not view. Obviously, it's 14, depending on where you measure from the building, it's 14 to 11 metres away. So that's, that's directly in front of the building. It totally dominates the view or the outlook from the inside of that property. It's overbearing and unneighbourly.
Okay, so loss of outlook doesn't appear in this planning guide for the other day.
I'm not sure what planning guide you're referring to.
We were emailed these set of tables and definitions.
Oh, from William.
I haven't seen that.
No.
I don't think that came accurate.
No, it's about 2 weeks ago.
We were out. I think I really see that what you said.
Yeah, of course. I think, Councillor, I think we've read it on. My thinking is months ago rather than the weeks ago. I think the members asked for some details around what did the codes stand for on the suffix applications, and did we have any other information that sets out, I suppose, debunking planning terminology? I think something was put together and sent out, but that was never meant to be an exhaustive list of every planning term you'd ever hear. So I think it would be, I don't think you can say, or we can say that we can't use that list because it's not in that list, but that was simply a list that was trying to be helpful at the time. It was never meant to be an exhaustive list of every possible term of every year in a planning release. I don't think that's probably possible to actually do it on
time.
I mean, I mean, there is a crossover between view and outlook and this grey area, and when one moves from one to the other, I think that's something you have to decide for yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Have you got any more questions?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Hodgson.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, if this was to be approved today, obviously, does that mean then that the rest of the phases would be almost allowed to go up to the same height? Or would it be,
Yeah, there would have to be another planning application to follow on from that.
And we could probably expect that.
Imagine so, yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't see how they could implement the rest of the proposal without that.
Secondly, if we refuse, they have to cut this back to actually comply with the planning commission. I mean, it's quite a big piece of work that's going to be the other side of it, isn't it?
I mean, they wouldn't be able to comply with it without taking it down and rebuilding
the whole lot.
Yeah, but I don't think, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't be expecting that. I mean, I think there's a reasonable compromise. They can just knock the roof down to the height it was meant to be.
Right. Thank you.
Councillor
Just some points while we're talking. The phasing that's been shown in phase 1, 2 and 3, that's the applicant or the developer's choice. It's not part of the application approval. The previous, the original application approval.
I think it was submitted on the basis, because obviously it's going to involve knocking down what's there.
Yeah.
Obviously, they built phase 1 so they can operate that, and then obviously
Move on to
phase they keep on operational. That was my assumption.
Yeah, but
I mean, perhaps that's a question to ask the applicant.
it wasn't approved though in that basis of phase 1, 2, 3.
As far as I'm aware, it was.
And one of the questions, in that case, the development's not finished, so it's still a construction site. So, you know, we all know sites that people have been dragging on and on and on. So the comments about things not having been completed could be completed like landscaping completed at the end. Just to clarify.
No, because what's being built, what's being built wouldn't allow, or certainly for this element, wouldn't allow the implementation of the approved landscaping scheme, but it would need a fresh scheme.
But there are elements also, you know, I was kind of parking or the fencing and things like that. But they're ongoing.
The car parking isn't part of this application. This is literally what we
Just a square block, isn't it?
In green. Yeah, I don't think it's that clear enough. Obviously, there's what's being considered today doesn't have all of that detail on the approved landscaping scheme.
The other thing, just to the grey road, you confirm that red was the colour approved by the previous planning.
Under the discharge condition, it was approved as Marley smooth red, which is, as I said, similar to the property Greenwood Ridge.
And just another, the final one, the distance between the property indicated and the hotel has not changed from the original approval. You're not saying that, you know, the hotel had to be built back further. That distance existed on the original approval.
I haven't measured that distance on the approved plans, but my understanding is that it hasn't changed.
Councillor Foss.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know really who this question should go to, but on the site visit, the railing around the top of the building pointed out, stood out like a little over the both the red tiles. It was quoted that health and safety definitely wanted that. It'd be interesting to find out where we are with that, whether health and safety overruled planning or planning overruled health and safety, because those rails weren't there. Would improve things a bit. So, you know, it really did stop the rails, it really did start out. I don't get an answer to that question today.
Yeah, Mr. Wyman, do you want
Speaking as a
It's not part of the approved plan, and you put there, and the applicant said it's because of health and safety, so they need to do that. I mean, if we approve something which requires health and safety additional, does that mean?
I mean, nothing has been put forward with application to support that statement. I'm not saying it's not true, but there would be other ways of providing that safety, a wire or, you know, a wire railing, which would be much less obtrusive, you probably wouldn't see it. Or you would have a wire on the ground that you clip your rope into.
Yeah, you harness, don't you?
But obviously what members are considering is the railings as seen.
I'm just trying to, the general public, that's not accessible to the general public, as I understand it. But the only people working there, the first thing you'd have to do would be a risk assessment. You probably not that wearing harness or some restraints rather than that.
Yeah, I'll try and answer the question. Mrs. Bowles will correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the fact that it's required by health and safety must mitigate the need for the planning commission. And if planning commission is not forthcoming, then some other way would have to be found, or if health and safety was so bad that the building cannot be used, then the building would, whatever that, I'm not specialist. I don't believe the health and safety building overrides a planning commission. I believe planning commission is still.
That's good.
What about mitigation, basically? If there was a way to mitigate it.
Well, I think.
The standard says quite clear is that because we, as the planning authority, I don't believe we've got any information setting up what the health and safety concern was. What they're trying to tell us about. I don't think we can provide any suggestions around mitigation because we don't know what we're mitigating against.
Right. Just final question for me, if I may, Ms. Stansbury. If you go back a few pictures, I think there's the one, it's really to the left of what's of the main.
Photo.
It's on the roof we're talking about. Maybe it's forward, I don't know. Yeah. So I should stop there. So no, that one you just have to call that. One, no, it's the one after that. Probably two after, not the next. Yeah, that one, that's it. Okay, so what I'm asking is you see on the top picture that big red line that goes past the dormer and that roof there, and then as approved, there doesn't appear to be, or are those lines of roofs along the one as approved in so phase one by that red line.
Sorry, what was the question?
The big fat red line, as built,
Yeah,
okay. You can see coming up from phase one, there is a roof line that's the same level of the ridge height, moving from right to left on that photograph to the right.
Yeah.
Okay. If you go down to the as approved, is there a line there that shows that roof going along there, or is that not meant to be there? You see, there's no dormer there.
No.
That's approved. There's no dormer.
Yeah.
There's no roof.
It's not very good pictures, is it?
No, I'm not quite understanding the question.
Okay, doctor's coming. That's your first thing we're talking about.
Yeah, and is that on the?
That's your second.
Right, we're only considering phase one, which is the right hand side of that red line.
Okay.
Top picture.
In the bottom picture.
It's been submitted with phase two on the plan, but just obviously that's not there.
So if you go to that line, is what we're looking at.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not there at the moment.
If I go to photos.
If you show us a photo, yeah. Yeah. No, it is there. So that bit, that ridge,
That
to the
door.
right, to the left, I mean, to the left.
Yeah, so just immediately to the left of that, the gable bit is there, but yeah.
And was that on the proposed?
Yeah.
But it's got short hills on it.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can't see it from back there, but yeah, there is. There is a ridge line.
So that's the roof line there. Okay, that's probably what I can work out. That's the ridge line, and that because it's being coloured with slate and above. Okay, lovely.
That's the approved application.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, and there is approved the routes to go out to the left. Okay, right, lovely, thank you. That's me. Any more? No? Oh no, sorry, Councillor Rowe.
Yes. If we're talking at the top picture, right on the left is what's been approved and on the right is what we're talking about, is that right?
No.
No.
The photo at the bottom where it says as approved,
Right.
is the approved plans.
Right.
The one at the top is what's been submitted for this application, but it's only for phase one, which is the element to the right hand side of the red line.
Has the top bit's already been built?
The right hand side of the red line has.
Yeah, it says as built.
Yeah, to the left of the.
But it's
red
not
line
the same,
has
the
been
same as what's approved, is
I
it?
am wondering because where it says the planning application, it says reimbursement, blah, 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 the planning consent, variation condition 2, a planning consent, which the numbers, and then it says 14F, so 14 means that there was a year, 14,
Yeah.
so that's 7 years ago we're talking about.
Yeah, that's when it was first submitted. The approved
And it's been dragging on all this time and longer than that, yes?
No.
No, this application came in 2019. The approved scheme came in 2014, so it's not been going. This has been going on since phase one was built, and I think there was an enforcement complaint when people realised it wasn't being built according to the approved plans.
Okay, I mean, it's not an area nowhere that I ever go, but yeah, fine. So I do understand, okay. That makes sense.
Okay. Thank you. Any more? In which case, thank you, Mr. Stansbury. And we will now move on to the speakers. So, Mr. Stu. This is Stu. Yeah, then we've got a slightly different one here. Oh, so it's Mr. Peace. Sorry, my mistake, Mr. Peace. Yeah, Hello there.
Do you mind if I sit here? See, I got my laptop.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. You sit where you want. Right.
Can I shut the door? Because we're going standing there watching me. Do you mind if I just shut the door?
She wants to shut the door.
So forward then. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, they've got to be able to hear it. Yeah. No, okay, right. You've got, I think, is it Mrs. Peace or Mr. Stu?
Stu.
This is Mr. Stu. Mr. Stu, you've got 3 minutes, and when you finish speaking, some of the councillors may want to ask a few questions for clarification, if that's okay. But so, over to you.
Thank you. Everyone, and thank you for letting me join the meeting to speak today. It's with great regret that I'm having to stand here, as I come from a family with a long history with Cottage Hotel and its owners, and it's very, very hard for me to do this. But we're here as custodians to Hope Cove, an area of outstanding natural beauty, a place we love and permanently reside. Big question of how the original scheme was approved, given every official body refused the initial application. That big question needs answering. What happened doesn't need an inquiry. However, it was given approval and it went ahead, but we would not all be here today if the supporter of this development had built it entirely in keeping with the originally approved plans, and none of us would be forced in this position. It's important to acknowledge that we bought our house knowing that there was going to be an extension. We assessed approved plans and were reassured by the council and Mr. Island that the flat roof extension would not exceed the height of the foot level on our terrace. It would have grey slate roof and with grass to the side of it. But we have been given no option due to the sheer scale of the overbuild, the use of brightly coloured materials, the ongoing building of car parks and outside spaces not approved in plans, the complete and utter lack of neighbourly respect throughout the build, and ignorance of AOMD development guidance. The fact of the matter is that the supporter of this development has disregarded the originally approved plan and built this first phase significantly beyond the scope and specifics of the originally approved. So I'm here out of love for Hope Cove, the residents and owners of property and visitors to Hope Cove, for the environment and us as a family who live in the property directly behind the extension that's being built. In case I run out of my allotted time, I've briefly summarised our main points of objection under the following 6 points, which I'd be happy to provide further detail should specific questions arise. Number 1, completely overbearing on our property Westview. Number 2, substantial sunlight blocking and considerable reduction of light in our property Westview. Considerable reduced privacy through the creation of an unapproved access road, extra bedrooms in the basement, and access directly in front of our terrace to it. It was supposed to be a fire exit only. The newly created car park parking space and related paths directly in front of our main terrace create great loss of privacy. Number 4, unneighbourly behaviour throughout the build. Number 5, extended hire car park. Number 6, permanent theft of our land through movement of our border to create the water pipe and manhole cover. Please refer to site section CC diagram, original CAD illustration of what was to be built, and the photos I submitted showing that what has been built from the same angle. Please also see within our property, the photos within our property to show the overbearing and considerable impact from inside due to height and angle and loss of light due to increased height and angle of roof shape. Can I just read my last paragraph?
Yeah, very quickly.
To conclude, I'm here to ask that this extension is modified in keeping with the originally approved plans and that all the unhighlighted, unapproved additions are removed and made good in keeping with the beautiful AOMD area within which we live. Any other outcome would be a complete travesty and set an alarming precedent in South Hants.
Thank you, Mrs. Stu. Members, any questions, Mrs. Stu?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Councillor Foss.
You mentioned you represent residents of North Cove. How many do you actually represent?
I've spoken to many people who live in the village and also people with second homes. I know that's not popular, but both have spoken to me and said, you know, I hope you're going to go and speak and say something. No one's given me a specific list, but various people have said, you know, I mean, we've had many discussions, as you can imagine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stu. Thank you very much for making the presentation. And we'll now move on to Mr. Arden, who is speaking in support of the application. Mr. Arden. Hi there. Mr. Arden, we've got 3-ish minutes, but I appreciate that you made a little bit extra, but hopefully not. But it's all yours, crack on.
Dear Planning Committee, we have to win today. This is about survival of the last few hotels in Hope Cove. Sand Pebbles and Lantern Lodge went last year. Losing another would be devastating to our village and 50 jobs. 3 minutes is not enough, what I have to say, so I presented the committee with evidence they can refer to for this meeting. In 2015, we were granted planning permission. Since then, 9 planning officers have been assigned to the project, resulting in no continuity from the planning department. Failure lies here. A few examples. The complete set of samples that delivered to the planning department. The planning department lost these. See email the 5th of the 12th, 2017. Roof tiles shown to the planning department were verbally agreed, so purchased and used. Outgoing planning officer failed to document or hand over this to the new planning officer. Response to planning conditions asked for by the council were lost by the council. In the planning report, page 73, it states 3, 7, 13 were missing. There is evidence against this. A 3-page letter, 21st of 5th, 2015. An email to the then chairman of planning, Councillor Robert Steer, informed him of the problems. Councillor Steer worked hard to arrange 3 meetings to try and help, but the planning department did nothing. 3rd of the 2nd, 2018, planning officer Miss Ormsby was sent the plans via email 3 days prior to the meeting on the 23rd of October 2017. Plans discussed with Miss Ormsby and Councillor Steer and my agent, Mr. Bullicombe. They contain proof that the elevations have changed. These were subsequently worked on and improved by Miss Ormsby and her successor, Mr. Williams. The planning officers failed to upload the new plans despite vast email evidence to show that they were the plans in use. Statement by Mr. Bullicombe provided plans were delivered, discussed and used. Ms. Sainsbury deliberately ignores this evidence and claims that the original plans produced by ARA are the ones she's working from, resulting in her inaccuracies of the information on height difference. 21st of 10th, 2017. Mr. Chris Booty, the enforcement officer, and Mr. Williams were informed that the drawings were not updated on the planning portal. I asked for assistance and again, nothing happened. Email 5th of August, 2019. Email, then team meeting with Ms. Stansbury, informed her of all the issues which she continues not to acknowledge. Mr. Barker, one of the owners of the old Colonial, still has an objection listed on the planning board. He asked for his comments to be withdrawn. This has never happened. Page 72 on the report. Why? In 2019, we can commence dialogue regarding the lower floor. It was established this was a vast waste of space, so a more viable use should be made of it. It was discussed at length and drawings amended twice with Councillor Mark Long and Mr. Williams. This shows that we were adapting the 2017 drawings that were never uploaded onto the portal. In 2017, drawings and the finished product have a 28 centimetre difference. That's less than this ruler I'm holding up now. Ms. Stansbury mentioned Gabion baskets were not in the plans. These were required by the structure engineer, whose detailed work is only done after planners agree. Following Mr. Alex Wish and Mr. Williams agreed how to improve the look of the Gabion baskets, Mr. Williams produced the granting list, which is on the planning portal. I tried to purchase Westview at the house auction. The current owners outbid me. However, the auctioneer made it fully known to them about the new development directly in front of their property. At every opportunity, I've tried to work with the department, but this, in the end, has not been mutual. I'm still waiting a response from my letter from the 7th of August 2021 to the Chief Exec. Please look at the facts, not an eloquent writing presented to you by the planning department, but the facts presented by a non-eloquent, dyslexic business owner. Business needs to survive and effective working relations established. The planning department has not allowed this to happen. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Members, any questions? Mr. Councillor Long.
Here are the questions of the height difference versus the height difference being challenged. Why or how do you think that height difference has come about, or has arisen?
The height difference has come about from when we had our meetings with Councillor Robert Steer and Mark Bullicombe. We presented the plans. I emailed them in the evidence you've got in front of you. With that, we could not build the building. I said I would not, I don't, because obviously there's a document in there which is not fair to my old architect, okay? Which you've got in your paperwork of reasons why there's a 300 mil difference written in your paperwork, which it couldn't be built to those drawings, okay? Which is the one to Cheryl that I wrote in quite a lengthy email, and that 300 mil, the new architect said couldn't be built as drawn with the plans. I did not know about that until 2019. I didn't even know there was a height difference at all until we got challenged by the neighbour from Old Colonial about a window difference, which is written in the documents I gave you. And at that point, the window was different, and I didn't actually realise that it hadn't been uploaded on the portal. You understand? At that point was when I realised, when I went to Chris Booty and said, what do we do here? I went to Williams and we worked quite clearly, me and Councillor Mark Long, in a meeting, 2 meetings, saying we've got a problem here. We actually thought we actually had fixed the problem, and then the planning officer, Mr. Williams, left his job again, like I've had all the way through the whole process. Everyone's left their job, and obviously, planning officer Cheryl Salisbury has taken a completely different stance, because he actually told us, and I believe it's in writing, minor amendments and the height difference have been mentioned and cleared. Because what difference does that ruler make to a building of that size? In my opinion, not a lot. But that's your judgment.
Yeah, I've got 2 or 3 questions. The first one is, I've asked a question already about the metal railings around the top of that building. You said that the site that they were required by health and safety. Were you not given any other options, like warning anybody that goes up there under an agreement that was quite close that they have to wear on? It's detrimental to the building, in my opinion. Okay. And what could you clear that one up? Then I'll come back for another one here.
Okay, JMP, the structural engineers which we used, they got 200 staff up in Sheffield and all over, different areas, because the local structural engineers actually found it quite difficult, the job with the water, as we had lots of problems. Water conditions, South West Water wants to charge us £497,000 for a pipe through the beach, and they actually said, we cannot do that. That was the local structural engineer. We got to a point where they went, oh my God, it's got so expensive that it was impossible to build. That's to do with the structural engineer, why I chose them. So we went to a bigger structural engineer firm, and those structural engineers told me that you had to have it for health and safety. They gave us the drawings and told me this is what you needed to do. Obviously, I wasn't going to argue with our structural engineers.
No, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just trying to mitigate some of the problems that have arisen from what's happened, to whether there's a way around that particular one. The other one is, maybe you may not be able to answer this either. Have you looked into any way that you could mitigate the colour of the tiles you've got there now by adding something on them to dull them down?
Someone suggested a councillor to me on Monday about yogurt. So I'm happy to put yogurt on.
I'm more interested in the professional.
Well, it was the councillor suggested that you could spray yogurt on the tiles that would dull them. They will naturally dull because our roof has been redone twice. I've been running the hotel for 28 years, and we put a new roof on. It was bright red for a long period of time, and now it's dull. It will happen naturally, but we will do anything we can to dull it if it was required.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Taylor? Yeah, that was mostly what I wanted to ask, but have you actually investigated that there's something that you can buy on it? Just to dull it down, because it is a little bit in your face, and you've got to agree with that.
I agree.
And you can dull it down until whether it is weather. There must be something on the market nowadays that you can actually spray.
I would look into that if someone could give me the information. It's always better if someone can give me the information. I would.
Miss you.
Was there somebody else who wanted to ask a question? I might know this one. I mean, obviously the approved application in 2015 had a certain bridge height. You keep referencing a pitch, a height that didn't go up on the planning portal in 2017. But from the approved application in 2015, how much is the ridge height higher now?
From the drawing of the cloud drawing, and there's one drawing that shows the differences in height, this one here. So I believe our builders have made a mistake by 28 centimetres on the build of our drawings of 2017.
Yeah, but just,
so that's
why are you referencing the 2017 and that was never an approved application?
Because we gave it to Wendy with Councillor Robert Steer there saying, this is, my father passed away.
Yeah.
And at those points,
We went to, I couldn't even get the planning department to get a meeting with my audit trail of trying to get a meeting, trying to actually get someone to talk to me. Eventually, we got through with Councillor Robert Steer to get the meeting with Wendy, and we handed the new plans. We said, after my father passed away, these are the new plans, and this is the new architect who drawn it. And it will pass to Wendy in the meeting with evidence of Councillor Robert Steer and Mark Whitcomb and Wendy there. And then I emailed before the meeting the floor plans, which I was then told that wasn't classed because it was just floor plans, because remember, I'm not an expert, I just saw the differences what we were doing, but the elevations were noted in the email to Wendy about the balcony screens changed. So in my opinion, Wendy should have asked if she didn't have it, which she did have, the elevations, which we gave her as well.
Okay, the reason why I asked that is because obviously as a committee, what was approved in 2015 is our benchmark. Pictures that have arrived in 2017 and it may have been discussed with officers and members, that doesn't mean that they're suddenly approved, because we approved in 2015, not the 2017. Now there may have been a mix-up from what you say, they weren't put on the portal. I think that, you know, as committee members, we have to work off what is actually approved and not what intermittent pictures are that arrive, albeit because they were.
But we did work on those plans with 2 planning officers.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you expect them to tell us it's not there after how many years of taking a risk? You know, there's certainly a point. We are taking a risk as our family, building it into Hope Cove. Everyone given us permission.
I understand that.
Shouldn't they tell us? When I told in 2019, I actually informed them in 2019. It wasn't on the portal again in writing.
Yeah.
Twice.
No,
what do you expect me to do?
I understand your frustration and the moving of officers. But what I'm trying to say is that 2015 is what was approved. There were obviously issues because otherwise you wouldn't have been having these meetings.
Well, no, because the meetings were done about the underneath, because we went to ask about, as we were building it, the structure engineer said to me at the beginning, you could use this space. And I said, no, I don't want to. We put the slab in. The builder put me on the slab, said, why are you not using this space? So we went back to talk to the planning department in February 2019, before we'd even built anything. That's how slow the planning department have been with me. If they would have, they had their opportunity. They could have, we were discussing these drawings with them. Why does it take to October 2021? If you have, you know, it should be acted there and then. It's not fair.
All right, okay. No, I understand your frustration. Right. Yeah.
The suggestion has been made of modifying or making good the approved plans the way forward. How do we respond to that?
I didn't understand the question.
The point has been made about the problems that exist that objective notes have looked at, that if it was modified and made good to the approved plans, then that would be acceptable to them. How do you feel?
I'd say
modifications could be made.
Too expensive, we would actually close. I would actually close the door. I don't think I could take the roof down, even 28 centimetres. You know, the cost of that would be unbelievable. We're not going to try and build it 28 centimetres higher on purpose, aren't we? If you think about it, I've done the builder. What's the advantage of me going to build 28 centimetres higher? None. Not 1 inch. So I haven't told the builders, I've told no one. And actually, I'm sure if you looked with planning experts, which we could get into litigation, a lot of litigation, what is the end goal? What is the advantage of this? You know, the choice is, do you want a hotel or do you not really? I mean, that's at the end of it, because we're talking this figure, in my opinion, even if you're talking that figure, does that make excessive difference to the building?
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Arlen? No? Thank you very much. No, Councillor Abbott.
Could you comment, please, on your view upon the design of the tiles that are on the front and the back of the building, and why you ended up with those as opposed to
To be honest, it most probably was. I had the two type samples. The one person said this is the right one, will look stunning. I presented it to Wendy in a meeting. She saw it. She actually said yes to that type in front of me in the hotel.